Late at night, a truck driver stops near the woods to relieve himself. At that moment, van parks nearby and Edith comes out, but she disappears when the driver turns around. On his way back, the man hears a noise and notices Walter trying to escape from the van. Before he can react, Edith smashes his head on the van and drops him before feeding on him. When another truck parks nearby and illuminates the area, Edith breaks the driver's neck to kill him and hides the body in the van. Walter then finally manages to break his ropes, but when he's about to escape, Edith drags him back and injects him with a sedative. The next morning, Edith sneaks onto a fancy cruise by driving her van among the vehicles that are boarding the ship. Then she gets on the elevator, where a little girl notices her suitcase is shaking. On the way to the bedroom, Edith is seen by Albin, who also notices the suitcase moving. When Edith discovers that Albin is staring, she immediately closes the door. Afterward, she opens the suitcase, revealing a bound Walter inside. He wakes up and is unhappy to hear they're going to Finland. Edith is about to sedate him again, but Walter begs for mercy and promises to behave. Edith agrees to keep him awake but muzzles him before leaving to get some food. As soon as Edith is gone, Walter begins untying the ropes. Meanwhile, performer Dan is trying to get naughty with a fan, but instead of spurting his seed, his member discharges blood. His shame makes him angry, so he yells at the fan to kick her out. Security guard Pia hears the yelling and comes to check on the poor woman, but Dan assures her everything is fine. Afterward, Dan goes to see performer Nadia, whom he has a crush on. He thinks they should perform together and sings a bit of his new song, causing her dancers to laugh. Nadia says that she likes it, but turns down the idea of performing together. Dan has to swallow his anger. During Nadia's performance, Dan watches her backstage and Pia says it's nice to have a real star on the board, which makes him angrier. Then Dan takes out his phone from his pocket and accidentally drops a bag of illegal substances. When rookie guard boss picks it up, Dan swears it isn't his, but Pia still has to alert the captain. In the audience, Lo tells her cousin Albin that she saw his father drinking again, which he isn't supposed to do because he used to be an addict. However, Albin doesn't want to talk about it. In the control room, the crew helps Vince surprise his boyfriend Kaye with a proposal. Sadly, Kaye apologizes and turns him down, so a devastated Vince runs off. While wandering around the cruise, Edith notices Marianne alone and follows her to the bar. Suddenly, a rude man bumps into Marianne and causes her to spill her drink on her shirt, so she goes to the bathroom to wash up. Edith follows her again, but when she's about to attack, Goran comes in and helps Marianne get the stain off. They end up leaving together, and Edith sighs as she stares at her locket. In the meantime, Tampa leaves his bachelor party to clear his head. When he hears a child's voice asking for help, he follows the noise and finds Walter hiding behind the bed. Tampa immediately grabs the phone to call security, only to hear growling behind him. Suddenly, Walter jumps on him and they struggle until they both fall to the floor. When Tampa checks if the boy is okay, Walter smiles with creepy teeth, confirming that he and his mother are vampires. Walter tackles Tampa and proceeds to suck his blood. Once he's fed, Walter watches Tampa slowly die, then he kicks the body. Suddenly, Tampa wakes up and spits all his teeth, since new sharper ones are growing. Tampa is now a vampire too, but he's a mindless beast. Walter takes his hand and tells him he must eat. In the corridor, a drunk woman accidentally drops her card key. Edith picks it up and offers to help her return to her room, which is seen by Pia and Boss. When they make it to Edith's room, there's blood everywhere and Walter and Tampa are gone. Edith decides to feed from the woman alone and kills her when she's done. At the daycare, a little girl gets on the slide but freezes when she notices the balls in the pit moving. Walter appears nearby and mocks her, but they're interrupted by the cruise's mascot. The girl takes the chance to run to her dad while the mascot asks Walter about his father. Walter says his father is dead to make the mascot leave, and Tampa emerges from the ball pit. In the corridors, Edith keeps looking for Walter. When she finds the daycare, she notices the vampire smell in the ball pit and rushes to the front desk to ask for help. The receptionist assures her they can find her kid, but she needs her name and room number. Since Edith is here illegally, she immediately walks away. Walter and Tampa keep trying to find someone to feed, but the chance doesn't present itself and Tampa is getting desperate. When they go to the deck, they see a man taking selfies alone. This guy checks if the pictures came out okay and notices Walter in the back with a creepy expression. Suddenly he's startled by Tampa, who brings him down and starts feeding on him. Walter has to stop him from taking too much and ignores Tampa's growl to force him to leave with him. In the room, Albin and Lo are watching a movie. They're interrupted by Albin's father Martin, who is drunk again. He thinks his family is ashamed of him and maybe he should self-delete. Lo ends up arguing with him and Martin points out she doesn't even have a father, so she leaves. After Martin falls asleep, Albin also leaves the room and finds Lo on the deck. Their chat is interrupted by a weird noise, so Lo turns around to discover the body Tampa left earlier. She takes a picture and posts it online, thinking it's just a drunkard. After the duo leaves, the man finishes transforming into a vampire. Meanwhile, Kaye follows Vince and apologizes for his reaction. He explains he used to work on this cruise but he hated it, so he doesn't want to get married here. Most importantly, Vince wants children and Kaye doesn't, so he can't accept his proposal. After Vince walks off, Kaye goes to the bar to drown his sorrows in alcohol. Dan also drinks and takes his illegal substance backstage. Then he introduces himself before getting on the stage to sing, but not everyone is impressed. He also has to host the karaoke night, and he drinks while the guests sing. Pia approaches him to inform him that the captain wants a urine sample. At the same time, Marianne keeps flirting with Gorn and meets his friends, but she considers them quite rude. They surprise her by apologizing for their behavior. When Maddie takes over the mic, Marianne and Gorn dance together, and Dan takes the chance to go backstage and keep consuming. While Tampa and Walter also enter the bar, Dan returns to the stage and notices that his nose is bleeding. The smell drives Tampa mad, so he pushes through the crowd and jumps on Dan to try to eat. Dan struggles to stop him while the crowd records everything with their phones. When Dan tries to throw a punch, Tampa bites his hand and starts drinking the blood. In the staff's room, Pia explains to Boss that she hates Dan because he's done the dirty with teenagers. At that moment they get called to the bar. By the time they arrive, Kaye has already pulled Tampa back. Pia and Boss take Tampa away, yet everyone keeps recording and laughing. Dan snaps and starts insulting everyone, so the barman drags him away. At that moment Edith arrives and sees Walter, who immediately runs away. Edith follows him to the deck and reminds him that the elders are already hunting them for what he did, so they can't keep breaking the rules. Walter refuses to obey and points out that vampirism is already spreading, showing her the teeth on the floor before running again. Edith chases Walter through the corridors and insists they should work together. Walter is tired of the old rules, so Edith pulls out the sedative. Before she can attack him, Walter yells for help and two guests come to his aid, so Edith runs away. On the deck, Gorn and Marianne almost kiss. Gorn wants to spend the night together, but Marianne panics and leaves alone. After locking Tampa up, Pia and Boss are called to check on Walter and conclude he's the missing child that the receptionist mentioned. Walter acts like an innocent kid and tells Pia that his mother was always mean to him. When Pia turns around to organize a search with Boss, Walter disappears. In the bar, everyone continues to drink and have fun. They don't notice Walter sneaking around and smoothly nibbling people's hands, little by little spreading the vampirism. Dan is mixing his medicine with alcohol but still feels terrible, so he leaves. In the corridor, a staff member shows Dan that his outburst has already been posted online. Dan isn't in the mood and just keeps walking, unaware that Walter is following him. When Walter is about to enter Dan's room, the crew's mascot sees him and tries to kick him out. In his bedroom, Dan tries to consume some more but he starts spitting blood. When he touches his teeth, they fall off. His body starts shaking as he collapses, slowly transforming into a vampire. At that moment Walter arrives and makes him drink his own blood. This allows Dan to become a smart vampire instead of a mindless beast. Then Walter opens the bathroom and reveals the wounded mascot. Dan immediately jumps on him to feed. Afterward Walter tells Dan that he's 143 years old and shows him that their wounds have already healed. Their bodies will heal almost everything and never age, they only need blood. Dan wonders if they're vampires, but Walter dislikes the word because the myth is wrong. They aren't affected by crosses, stakes, or sunlight. The ancients have rules they're supposed to follow, but Walter is tired of it and wants to be respected. Dan also wants that, so they agree to work together. Meanwhile Tampa's victim is approaching a crowd and Lo sees him, so she takes a picture. Before he can attack, Edith finds him and takes him away. In an empty area, Edith kills the guy and throws him into the sea. In the men's bathroom, Edith finds another bitten guy in a stall. When she hears people coming, she enters the stall too and closes the door. The men relieving themselves think they hear a noise but leave without questioning it much. Then Edith breaks the victim's neck to kill him. Afterward Edith checks the corridors and finds one more vampire, so she makes her follow her and kills her in a corner. Back to Lo, she checks her picture and discovers that Edith is in it, noticing how suspicious she looks. She even calls her a potential serial killer. Albine thinks she's exaggerating and goes looking for her mother Sarah, who is at the bar with Lo's mom Layla. Sarah is wheelchair bound and doesn't blame Martin for drinking because she thinks he has a hard time taking care of both her and their son. Layla insists she should leave Martin, but Sarah wants Albine to have someone who can provide for him. She explains it would be much simpler if Albine didn't exist, and unfortunately Albine overhears this last bit without context. The awkward moment is interrupted when Lo arrives too and Albine takes the chance to ignore his mother. Lo shows them Edith's picture and Albine points at her weird teeth, so Sarah concludes she must be an addict. When Albine tells them about the moving suitcase, they don't believe him. Lo then asks Layla if Albine can stay with them tonight because Martin is misbehaving, and Layla agrees. Sarah apologizes to Albine before he leaves. Kaye keeps looking for Vince everywhere to no avail. On the deck, Vince finds Marianne and they end up talking about their bad luck with love. They go to the bar to keep chatting over a drink and Vince convinces Marianne that she needs to leave shame behind and enjoy life. When Gorn arrives, Vince quickly leaves them alone. Vince apologizes for moving too fast and Marianne is ready to try again. In the bathroom, Vince gets a call from Kaye but he ignores it. A frustrated Kaye goes to their room and is devastated to discover the surprise Vince had prepared for him. In the meantime, Lo and Albine watch the video of Dan online and they notice Edith looking at him. Getting suspicious, Albine takes Lo to the room where he saw Edith earlier and they knock on the door, but nobody comes out. At that moment Martin wakes up and looks for his son, so the kids run away. In the corridor, Maddie hears a scream, so she rushes to the front desk to report what happened. Boss and Pia are sent out to investigate. They split and start knocking on every door, only to find drunk people everywhere. Suddenly Pia hears Boss asking for help on the radio, so she rushes to the other corridor and discovers a bloody handprint on a doorframe. Boss doesn't answer the radio anymore, so Pia enters the room. Growling can be heard and Pia is seen fighting something in the darkness. After some struggle, she manages to free herself and grabs the fire axe to kill her attacker. On Pia's way out, Edith sees the blood and rushes to the room to check which vampire was killed. In her room, Maddie hears knocking and opens the door for her best friend, who comes inside with a lost look on her face. Maddie then notices the terrible wound on her back and thinks her friend was attacked. Suddenly the woman rips off Maddie's earring, so she quickly runs away. Outside, Lo and Albine look for the body they saw earlier and find the bloody teeth. Nearby, Dan messes with the ship's antenna, cutting off all communications. In the control room, the crew discovers they've lost contact with the mainland. Walter and Dan then come in, but the captain ignores them because he's trying to restore communications. Dan takes his hat and puts it on Walter's head before biting him. In the bar, someone yells for help and the crowd watches a woman bring a bleeding friend to the middle of the room. The staff rushes to close the doors right before a bunch of vampires start pounding on them. The guests try to use their phones, but not a single device is working. In the office, Pia cleans off all the blood before trying to use her radio and her phone to no avail. When head of security Ani comes in, Pia tells him that Boss is dead and she killed a passenger in self-defense. She also explains that the passenger bit Boss to death, but Ani doesn't believe that story. Pia points at Tampa in the security cameras, saying he also must be a monster and that they have to lock down the place. However, Ani thinks it's a prank. On another camera, Pia is shocked to see Boss walk out of the room. Edith soon finds him and pushes him back inside. Auntie also sees this and tries calling the captain, but nobody answers the phone. He decides to go out to investigate and tells Pia to stay with the cameras. She watches other guards patrolling the corridors and tries to warn them of what's happening on the radio, but it's too late. The vampires outside the bar see the guards and immediately attack them. After having a small breakdown, Pia manages to contact the receptionist and tells her that all venues are closed now, so she must keep people away from the bar doors. The receptionist uses the broadcast system to make an announcement, asking all guests to stay in their rooms. Lo and Albine try to tell the receptionist that the crazy people are vampires, but Kaye tells them to go back to their parents. In the bar, the wounded woman dies and her friend tries to give her CPR. However, the woman wakes up as a vampire and bites her. Goran and another man pull her back and search for something to tie her up. Pia begins patrolling the corridors and sends the confused guests to their rooms. She comes across Dan, who pretends to be normal. Pia notices his bite mark is gone, but leaves when she hears people screaming. Behind Dan, Walter is eating the receptionist. When he's done, he guides Dan through the ship and teaches him how to control